My name is John Farnsworth, and today I will be presenting a presentation on my research paper entitled The Milgram Experiment and Applications to Accounting. Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment that studied obedience to authority. In his own words, Milgram states, "I set up a simple experiment at Yale University to test how much pain an ordinary citizen would inflict on another person simply because he was ordered to by an experimental scientist. Stark authority was pitted against the subject's strongest moral imperatives against hurting others, and with the subject's ears ringing with the screams of the victims, authority won more often than not. The extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any lengths on the command of an authority constitutes the chief finding of the study and the fact most urgently demanding explanation." In further detail, according to Milgram, the experiment worked as follows. Two volunteers arrive at a lab, and one is designated as teacher and the other as learner. The volunteers are told that the study is based on studying the effects that punishment has on learning. The learner is brought to a room and strapped to a chair that kind of looks like an electric chair. The learner is then told the process that the study will follow is that he will be read matched word pairs, and then will be asked to give the second word of the matched pair when the first word of the pair is read to him. If he makes a mistake, he will receive an electric shock as punishment. The intensity of the shock will increase with every additional mistake. Milgram goes on to describe that the actual focus of the experiment is the teacher. After watching the learner being strapped in his chair, the teacher is given command over a display board that has 30 levels lined in a row. After starting with the first lever of 14 volts, each lever after gives increased electrical shock to the learner, culminating in a shock of 450 volts. The levers are grouped together in groups of 4 levers and labeled to describe the severity of each range of shocks. Milgram states that the teacher is the true volunteer who believes all aspects of the experiment to be real. In reality, the learner is actually an actor who receives no shock whatsoever during the experiment, but only appears to be doing so. The experiment is designed to see how much pain a person is willing to inflict upon another when they are ordered to do so by a person in authority, in this case, the experimenter. In an instance in accounting where an employee followed the unethical orders of her boss is the case of Betty Vinson and the major accounting fraud of WorldCom. In reference to the beginning of the fraud, Susan Pullman states that while in a meeting with the company's CFO, Scott Sullivan, Vinson's colleague, Troy Norman, told the CFO that he was concerned about being held responsible for the accounting changes that they had made so far. Sullivan assured Norman and the listening Vinson that they hadn't done anything against the law, and that he would take full responsibility for the things he was asking them to do. A short time after the meeting with the CFO, Pullman states that even though Vinson was still concerned about the accounting treatment of some of the issues she was facing, she tried to rationalize her choice to follow her boss's decisions. She figured that since Sullivan was seen as one of the best CFOs in the country, then if he felt a certain thing was the right way to go, it wasn't for her to second-guess him. This type of thinking and rationalization is at the heart of Milgram's experiment, which is following authority even when it goes against the dictates of your own conscience and personal values and beliefs. In a case where an individual decided to stand up to the perceived shady dealing of her boss is the case of Cynthia Cooper, who was the head internal auditor at WorldCom. According to Pullman and Sullivan, Cooper had not agreed with a major financial decision that her boss, CFO Scott Sullivan, had made. She felt the decision should be reconsidered by the company's audit committee. After both Cooper's and the CFO's cases were reviewed, the company sided with Cooper. Pullman and Sullivan also assert the day after the incident, Sullivan tried to get in contact with Cooper. He called her husband at home, trying to get her cell phone number. When he couldn't get her on the phone, he found her at the hairdresser's. He told her that she wasn't to get involved in this type of business affair again. But with growing pressures and uncertainties, according to Pullman and Sullivan, Cooper decided to audit the financials of the company. This created a lot of extra work for her staff, and she did it without the knowledge or permission of her boss, CFO Scott Sullivan. Cooper is like those in Milgram's experiment who would not go against their values and better judgment in order to just go along with the desires of those in authority. Milgram's experiment clearly shows that there is a high potential for many individuals to disregard their own personal beliefs and values in order to follow the unethical orders of those in authority. This is seen in the example of Betty Vincent and the accounting fraud that occurred at WorldCom. The experiment also shows that there are those who will take a stand for what they believe is right. This is demonstrated by the example of Cynthia Cooper, who would not adhere to the authorities that be and leave issues alone that she felt needed to be examined and perhaps rectified.